equal position against religion. Women were sent to schools, a lot of reforms were made in family law, and also the Ottoman Empire opened an elected parliament, which is something that the Taliban still doesn't accept today. And that happened under the Khilafah, the Islamic Caliphate. And it was understood that the Khilafah of the modern world cannot be like the Khulafai Rashidun. That's a different era. We don't have any rightly guided caliphs anymore. We're not in the time of our Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Sahaba anymore. So there's actually nobody who can authoritatively represent Islam. So Khilafah became a symbolic institution, and the Ottoman Empire started to become also almost like a British-like constitutional democracy, constitutional monarchy. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. Since then, we have the Turkish Republic. Of course, Turkey today is a very powerful country, exemplary in many ways. One big problem in Turkey is this constant polarization between political camps, and we're still going through that. But if you look at from a religious perspective, I think Turkey is a good model today. The state is not enforcing religion in Turkey on anyone. A lot of Turkish ladies wear the hijab, others don't. And the state is not going after them to make them wear the hijab like they do in Afghanistan or Iran. Or in Turkey, we have the Hanafis, we have Alevis, we have other religious groups, we have still some non-Muslims, and the state is not enforcing any sect on anyone, which has allowed Turkey to have a healthy religiosity. I've written in my writings today that polls show that in the Ramadan, more people fast in Turkey than in Iran. Or at least equal numbers, but Turkish numbers show a little bit higher. Now, how is it possible? Iran is an Islamic state where they check if people fast in Ramadan or not. But that very Islamic state model in Iran, because it's authoritarian, made a lot of people feel distant towards religion, even outright not religious. I mean, you might see this in the Iranian diaspora. Whereas in Turkey, the state doesn't act in the name of religion. It's a civil state with problems. I mean, I'll say that. But people are religious because they really are religious. I mean, they kept religion through civil society, through community, through family, not because dictated from above. And I think that has allowed a more healthy religiosity to still keep on being in Turkey and still out there.
Thank you for completing before time.
Okay.
So now the question is to Mr. Nasser Ali Shah Bukhari. Civilizational integration sounds compelling, but Afghanistan-Pakistan relations are shaped by deep political mistrust and security concerns. What would this idea look like in practical, measurable terms between the two countries, not just as a concept, but as a policy or action?
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, we have gathered here for the commemoration of Shahadas, Shaheed General Muhammad Daud and Maulana Shaheed General Shah Jahan Nuri. I also facilitate the families of these Shahadas and in general the people of Afghanistan who are in this process of learning more and more and finding this civilizational integration as a key subject for deliberations today. I would like to add here also that I have a emotional and ancestral connection with the region of Balkh and Bukhara. And with that connection, I feel that the question of integration is more relevant to people here, myself, and others in Afghanistan also, that the connection cannot be separated. The bloodline and the blood connections stay there, and that is forever. Second thing is that when we talk about civilizational integration, in most of our countries, our immediate thought goes to history and religion. we try to get connected through our history and religion. Whereas in today's world, it has, to a great extent, after the February 28th, what we have witnessed, that there is no international law which is being practiced, and there is no other law which could be the key for any integration of any of these regions. Because what we can today see, that the economic fundamental questions have become more important for integration rather than the old civilizational concepts of history and religion. And the example which I give you is that before we had seen the things happening in the Middle East, but until this Hormuz has not happened, nobody has realized that how much impact it can have on the economies of the world. And everybody woke up and started saying that this is now hurting us. Similarly, for the economic integration becomes the reality for the civilizational integration now. And for countries in our region, all the ECO countries especially, which I think are linked to each other in many ways, even if there are certain realities about the religion and history, but the most important thing which we must understand is that Silk Route integration, which was for economy. We forget about that economic integration which was there in the Silk Route, for which connected all of these ECO countries over centuries and over years, where the economic integration had resulted in people's migration to different regions in this area. And that is what we have to really look forward today again, to if we need to make an impact, that we need to think about economic integration, economic reopening, free travel, and with that concept of cooperation and building the whole area, just like as EU, economic union had come about in Europe. That concept of economic integration would drive towards security, political, and also the business movement, people-to-people movement, so that we could achieve the real sense of integration which is needed. We can continue to talk about the history and religion, but we have to focus now what is required in the world today, and that is that we have to improve the lives of our people. We can be having issues with various governments, but one question everybody is interested in is about humanity. Unfortunately, now today the human rights and women's rights, nobody is really interested in or talking about, even though we would like that as the main principle of any human society to accept and follow that. But what we have seen in the past years and in recent times also, these are somewhat like the times where people are not bothered about. But economically, if you have a say in this area and in this region, everybody would like to follow the rule of the economy. And when economy we talk about or business we talk about, it comes with best practices. Best practices demand human rights. Best practices demand women's rights. And that is possible when we are providing the environment for free movement, and not only for free movement of people, but also free movement of goods, free movement of money in the region, where then all of these other things which could be important for the civilization to grow and integrate can definitely be the way forward. security, of course, is the main concern in our times, and that's a very important thing. But a joint defense, a joint sort of a setup to make sure about providing security should be one of those objectives where we can see the world going forward, especially if you know in the recent times the agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan.
Thank you, sir.
Has
So we will come
opened
back
up a
to
new.
you. We will come back to you to the second round of questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mustafa, you mentioned that, okay, Turkey is a good model, and I believe that, and you mentioned about the choice of the rights for every citizen, like hijab and other things. But we have seen repeatedly that how religion can be instrumentalized to legitimate the power. My question is that where should the state draw the line between respecting religious values and at the same time protect the individual freedom, especially when these two come into the tensions and clash each other?
Well, I'm not arguing that Turkey today is a wonderful model in every aspect of the term. I mean, today there were news in Turkey about main opposition party having police at its door. There's political tensions in Turkey a lot, and I'm critical. And we had it in Turkey from two different sides, from the religious conservatives, from the secularists as well. Turkey has sometimes ethnic issues over Kurdish, Turkish islands, so Turkey has problems as well. If I can point to a country that is also worth looking into in the Ummah, in the Islamic world, that's Indonesia. Indonesia is the largest Muslim majority country in terms of its population. It's a democracy. It's a developed country, and it had an authoritarian regime in the 20th century, but it had transitioned to democracy, and Indonesia's Islamic groups supported that transition. So there are many different models in the Muslim world. In Tunisia, there was a very promising move towards a civil state, a democratic state, after the Arab Spring of 2011, and Tunisia's Islamic Party, and Nahda, actually spearheaded that democratic change. They even stopped calling themselves Islamists. They said, we are Muslim Democrats. And their ideological, philosophical leader, Rashid al-Ghannouchi, who's unfortunately in jail now because the regime turned authoritarian, has, I think, very important ideas in terms of compatibility of Islam and democracy and freedom, civil liberties. Now, so the question was,
How to draw the line between because they are misusing the religion
Yes,
and
sure.
weapon against the freedom,
Yes.
against the individual's different rights. So
Now,
how the states can...
I have a book on that, which we have copies here, right? No compulsion in religion, no exceptions, Islamic arguments for religious freedom. So I look into this issue of how religion should be really articulated in the public square in the Muslim world. Now, some Muslims would say, Islam is our religion. Of course, the state should be in an Islamic state. End of discussion. Why would not? But then you ask another question. Okay, if it's going to be an Islamic state, whose Islam will it be? They will say it will be the Sahih Islam, right? Well, who decides which one is that? And if you go down the road, you see actually in the Muslim world today, again, we're not in the time of the Prophet and the Sahaba, right? But true Islam was very clear at the time. Since then, we have so many sects. We have so many different interpretations of Islamic law. We have different Islamic views. Taliban thinks differently from the others. Deobandis are different from the Barelvis. Ahl Hadith is different from the modernists, and so on and so forth. So whenever we have an Islamic state, it turns out to be the state of some Islamic group. And others feel themselves discriminated, sometimes oppressed. In the Sunni majority states, for example, today, in Saudi Arabia or Pakistan, look at the Shiites. Ask them, do you feel equal citizens? Generally not. They go to Iran. Ask the Sunnis, do you feel equal citizens? Not. That's the case. That is why heading towards a more democratic, inclusive, civil state is the right response. Do we have examples of this? Turkey religiously is, I think, at that point. Indonesia is a good one. Bosnia-Herzegovina is another small Muslim majority country, but it's a democracy and people are free to practice their religion. Because ultimately, religious belief and practice should come from within. A Muslim lady should wear a hijab because she thinks that's my religious duty and I want to worship God with this practice. That's a wonderful thing that we respect that. Other ladies might not feel exactly the same way. I might not be following that interpretation or say that I cannot do this yet. They should not be coerced. They should not be forced by the government, by a religion police, by this and that. Thank you, ma'am. Or, exactly, stuff. Also, so many interpretations. Music. I know in Afghanistan, Taliban took an issue with that. Why does the Taliban ban musical instruments, break them? They think music is haram. Well, that's one view in Sunni Islam. Other Sunni scholars that I know from Turkey think that music is not haram unless it is a satanic, bad music or in terms of... Well, so I have a perfect solution to the Taliban. If you think music is haram, then don't listen to music. But no, they don't want you to listen to music as well. So they can't break your cassette players, your musical instruments, and so on and so forth. Well, the solution is la ikraha fid din. Follow what you believe as the Islamic interpretation. And the law of the country should be based on general consensus. All Muslims would agree, non-Muslims would also agree that crime and theft should be punished. There should be general security for everybody. But specific Islamic interpretations should not be enforced by the state. Like the Taliban bans Muslim ladies from traveling without a mahram. That comes from a few hadiths, we respect them. But I have Hanafi scholars in Turkey who make the case that, I'm sure others in the other parts of the Muslim world too. Well, those hadiths were about a Muslim lady traveling alone in the desert with dangerous bandits. It was about their security. No wonder there's other hadith which says a time will come a Muslim woman will be able to travel Hajj from Iraq to Hajj alone. So it was about protecting them in a very dangerous environment. Today in the modern world, with modern transportation, you don't have that problem. So what should they do is they should say, we believe this is our interpretation, we're promoting that maybe, but they cannot enforce it by the government. And that's the main problem. And I think we will have less fights over religion or conflict over religion when we accept la ikraha fid din is generally valid for everyone. You follow your interpretation, I follow my interpretation, and the government protects general security, welfare, protects rights of everybody without being the government of one, this or that Islamic group and whomever catches that. Islamic or anti-religious group, of course.
I have one question.
So we can take the question at the end if time allows. Thank you. Mr. Nasser Ali Shah, you mentioned about the economic migration things. I personally believe that most Afghans are forced migrations rather than economic things, but we will not go to that conversation because it is beyond our time. My question is that peace processes are often dominated by political elites and exclude those most affected by conflict. What would it take to structurally include local communities, especially women, in both sides, Afghanistan and Pakistan, rather than treating them as just symbolic participants?
Please excuse me, I don't hear you very well. I don't know why, but your voice, but what I gathered is that you are talking about communities on both sides of the border for their... can you explain if you don't mind?
Sure, sir.
Can you say it again?
I would just repeat my question. We have witnessed so many programs, processes about building peace through both nations, in Afghanistan, outside Afghanistan, in Pakistan as well. And the most conflicted ones who are impacted by is the communities, especially women in both sides. I wanted to know your perspective on that, how we can structurally include women and other local communities to build the peace in both countries.
Yes. I can give you some idea about or my thoughts in terms of the situation where this people-to-people relationship has been one of the main forte for many of the Afghan guests which we have had in Pakistan. The relationships over here has been very, very helpful for both communities, for Pakistanis and for Afghans both. I feel a pain when I see that with the present day policy that Pakistan has been asking the Afghans to go back. This is very, very painful to me, and also I see many of the families suffering from that. But the issue of security has become, unfortunately, during the present times of the interim setup in Afghanistan, that this situation has now moved to a very painful situation. However, people-to-people connection, family connections, economic connection which they have is much, much stronger. Just other day, the Chaman border was opened and thousands of Afghans have come there for celebration of upcoming Eid, which is a good sign, good omen, how people can get connected because they have relationships on both sides. So this is one of those things which I feel like is somewhat we are short in terms of providing the peaceful stay for the Afghan guests which we have had. But we have to get out of this situation soon, and I hope with the improvements in overall conditions for Afghan people in Afghanistan, this matter will be partly resolved, and there will be more people-to-people connections, and also the integration on both sides, not only with Afghanistan but in the region overall. Also with Iran in some sense. Between Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all the three countries can benefit from that.
Thank you, sir. So you have 1 minute to share any thoughts or any recommendation that you think we could benefit from.
Astaghfirullah, I benefit from things I understand today here. I mean, this is an ummah issue, right? I mean, and Afghanistan has specific problems. And today, Afghanistan is under the control of the Taliban. It's an authoritarian government that rules in the name of Islam. Now, things may not change in 2 years, 5 years, but I think for the long run, we all should invest in a freer Afghanistan, where everybody can follow their religious persuasions. Everybody, Pashtun, Hazara, all different kinds of religious groups, ethnic, Uzbeks, and everybody can live as who they are, as they believe. Everybody can live religion without coercion from the government, and a government that respects everybody. That is a way healthier model than a government which comes to power and says, I am ruling you in the name of Islam. Now, what is very interesting is that the governments who do that always claim to serve Islam, but they end up making Islam serve themselves because it brings them to power. When they're coming to power, they don't ask anyone, do you really want us or not? No, we are the emirate, we are the khilafah. Who gave you that? Did you ask? Did you get bay'ah? Did you have a consultation? Did you have an election? So I think this self-serving nature of Islamic government, which also is another case in Iran, has to be criticized. And we don't want any more wars, we don't want any more conflict in our countries, definitely, I'm ruling that out. But for the better future of our countries, we should invest in ideas, we should talk about how we have a healthier society. And I think the Quranic principles, there are principles in the Quran we do not honor enough, I think. And la ikraha fi din, no compulsion in religion, is one of those. Historically, this was given to non-Muslims, Jews and Christians. They were not converted to Islam. They were allowed to practice their religion. But within Islam as well, we need to have no compulsion between different interpretations and sects of Islam. Then we will be a more peaceful and more free and pluralistic Muslim society, and everybody will be better. And then we will focus on not which fatwa is we're fighting. We will focus on education, we will focus on development, we will focus on investment, we will focus on raising our sisters that get a better education, so we become a more productive society. This is what the Ottoman Empire understood in the 19th century. That's why the Caliphate opened so many schools so that girls get better education. And I'm sad to see today it's the opposite under the Taliban government.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nasser Shah, you have also 2 minutes for any last thoughts or recommendation.
I agree in terms of the overall environment which needs to be provided for the society. However, I would also like to add one critical point that whatever we have today in terms of examples in Muslim society as such, we need to now develop our own systems where we can find betterment for our people. In Pakistan, for example, there is a search right now for the last 1 year. We are seeing more and more confident Pakistan, and we are seeing more and more participation in terms of what used to be before. Although there is a sense that it's a directed way of say political thought, but still there is a much more better environment than what it was before, economically also, and in terms of the new economic situation in our region. One important thing is that unfortunately the wars in our region are unending. We have to find ways to become peaceful region, because prosperity can come only when this region is peaceful. And that's a cumulative effort for all the countries in the region. We all have to work together that we live a peaceful life for ourselves and for our generations, and make economic development possible as a fruit of peace.
Thank you. So thank you to our panelists for such thoughtful and honest reflections. What actually stands out for me for this discussion was that different perspectives on how to build a civil state. There is a shared recognition that Afghanistan's future cannot be built on exclusion, silence, or imposed models. It must be built on dialogue, dignity, and inclusion. Thank you. خانم ثریا بهار، در این وقت از شما دعوت می‌کنیم که صحبت‌های اخیرتان را با ما داشته باشین و ما به نمایندگی از برگزار کننده ها از شما معذرت می‌خواهیم که شما را تا این حد منتظر گذاشتیم. تشکر.